So I think like I kind of knew what to expect. I know what works with kids, which is just being authentic. I think if you try to come in and be something that you're not, it gets exposed quickly. The teenagers can smell BS pretty quick, and so I think that was for me it was a natural transition to do that because I had sat on the other side of it for so long, and I kind of knew how I was going to approach it. I knew what my value is and what I bring to the table, and I just played to my strengths and build relationships and connect with kids, and I think that's something I had success with at Sewell for a long time, and I just tried to carry that straight over.
Yeah, the other thing Kenny had mentioned too is like the details and focusing on the small details of a position group rather than the whole team, from the difference from high school to position coaching. So just from you, like, what are some of the things that you kind of picked up in your first year of doing that, and how do you feel like it translates into your second year entering it?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's funny because even talking to head high school coaches now, and they always want to ask, how's the transition, and everybody wants to know what's the workload like when you go from being a head high school coach to coaching college football, and it's your focus is so much more narrow on what you have to do. Going from running a program where you've got 150 kids that you're responsible for with parents and teachers and recruiting and academics and behavior and all these things that you're managing for the whole team, and then you come in and you coach a position, and I had 6 guys in my room last year plus a recruiting board of another 8 kids that I was recruiting in the 24 class, and a handful of kids that I was recruiting in the 25 class, and you look at the number of the things that you're managing on a day in and day out basis, and it allows you to really truly focus your attention on more of the details as it applies to your position group and your recruiting and things like that. So I found at times like I felt like I was juggling way less different moving parts, and I could just really focus in on trying to do a good job. And I thought it went well. Obviously, going through the first year, you don't know what you don't know, and every single thing that happened throughout the course of the year was a first. Yeah. It was the first pre-spring workouts. It was the first spring ball. It was the first spring recruiting. It was the first fall camp. Everything was the first, and so I feel like now, getting through that and getting through all those firsts, having a better understanding of what to expect, the day in and day out flow of a college football season, I feel even that much more laser focused on doing my job, and you're worried less about the unknown and more about just knowing how to show up and do your job on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah, when there's a lot of firsts, so you kind of got to work through your process and refine it. So what was kind of the journey to refine that process and find what worked for you?
It was just showing up and working hard, and being ready. I had a coach call me a FIO guy. He said, "You're a FIO guy, is figured out," and so something I pride myself in is you show up and you figure it out, and you adjust on the fly and you adapt quickly. And I think people, whether you're a coach or you're a professional, again, people that can figure it out and adapt quickly are the ones that have success. And then I think I thought I did a good job of doing that. Obviously there's plenty of things that I know I can improve on and I can get better at, and getting through that first year, you identify those things and you just continue to look in the mirror and try to find your weaknesses. Just like a player, we're going to try to pick apart your weaknesses to try to improve you. I think the coach got to do the same thing, and obviously it was helpful to lean on Charlie and lean on Sean, and having guys, Kenny that had been at the high school level before and kind of knew what my transition was like, and that was obviously a huge help to have those guys. And I'll forever be indebted to Charlie and to Sean too for helping me with that transition, because they were good shoulder to lean on at times, and they were like Charlie was really helpful too, of coming over and saying, hey, you're doing a really good job, and being complimentary too, because again, you don't know what you don't know. So you're like, I'm out here, I'm grinding, but nobody stops to tell you you're doing right or wrong. If you're doing it wrong, it gets exposed, and if you're doing a good thing, a lot of times you just do it and you keep going. So I was appreciative to him of giving me some good positive feedback on things as well.
You said there was areas you need to improve on that you kind of reflected on after the first year. What are some of those things you feel like you need to improve on?
I think some of it is, I don't know that I could have done it any differently, but I think coming in as a first-year coach, I wanted to make sure that I always approached respect. I think from a player to coach relationship is, I think it's always earned and not demanded, and I think that's a little bit of the kind of the new age modern coach-player relationship is, if you come in and you demand respect right off the bat and you talk down people, if you've done it for 25 years and you put 15 guys in the NFL and you've done all those things, it's a little bit easier. For me as a first-year guy, I felt like I came in and I wanted to really build a genuine relationship with my guys, wanted to show them that my knowledge and experience and everything that I was telling them, was going to help them, and I felt like I came in and I built that trust. I think looking back, that I could have maybe really challenged them, and I don't want to say challenge them, but like really held them to a standard, and maybe put my thumb down on them a little bit harder sooner. But I was also very cognizant of being a first-year coach, being new, being in a room where there's a lot of guys that have been here, and I didn't want to come on too strong too early. And so it's just that balancing act of how hard can I push them without having really built that relationship. And I felt like as the season went on, I tried to push more, and I felt like they responded to it. And I got great feedback from our guys in exit interviews as far as their trust in me and belief in me as a coach. And I know that I can challenge them and push them. And I think as I continue to gain experience, I'll be able to really ramp that up and turn that up. But I think that was the biggest thing, is just like making sure, like, you know, I build that trust, build that respect, and then I challenge guys and I hold them accountable, and I don't cut them any slack. You gotta set the standard high, and you gotta continue to push to raise the bar.
It's hard too to set the standard high in your first year because there's so many firsts and so many new things kind of happening at once. Yeah. But Kenny just talked about setting the minimum standard and how that's really important going into year number 2. So how do you feel like the minimum standard is kind of shaping up as you guys get prepared for spring ball?
I feel like everything's been raised, to be honest with you. It starts, you mentioned it, details and organization. It starts at the very top, and when there's a detailed, organized plan from the very top, everything down below that, like for us as a position coach, when we know exactly what's expected, how it's expected to be done, it makes our jobs easier. And so I think that there's been a major emphasis on that this offseason, on just the level of details and attention to those details. And I think that makes everybody's job easier, from the coordinator to the position coach to the position players and all that stuff. The more everybody understands what's expected of them, the easier it is to show up and do your job.
Right. Can you talk about too, kind of like unifying verbiage and like language of the team and the offense and the scheme? So just what is that process like to transition to that and kind of adapting that and really getting everybody on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you come in and you've got all these. I always say it's like different languages, right? It's like, you know, you got these guys came in and they speak Spanish, and this group speaks French, and then we got to take all this and we got to create our own language, and then we got to be able to speak that language fluently. And just like any foreign language, it is a foreign language. You don't take one semester of foreign language and then you know it right away, right? You got to get it. Now we're in semester 2 and it's getting a little bit more advanced, and we're starting to have conversations in this language, and pretty soon, if we keep speaking that language consistently, we'll be fluent in it. And that's, good football teams are fluent in their language, and they can speak it concisely, because I think that's a big thing too, is being able to communicate concisely, because things happen fast during a game. You got to come to the sideline, and there's not a lot of fluff. You got to get right to the point. You got to communicate effectively, and then be able to listen and hear effectively, and then get back out and translate it. So.
From a personnel standpoint too, like what are your kind of general expectations for the room, and maybe some guys who stepped up to leadership positions? So
yeah, I mean, obviously, we've got one returner in Bryce Pierre. Fired up about him. I think he made huge strides throughout the course of the year last year. He's experienced. He's big. He's athletic. He's versatile. I thought he improved a ton in the core from the time that we got to spring ball last year through the end of the season. That was a weakness of his, was playing in the core. I think by the end of it, it became an asset. And obviously, he's a big receiver. He can flex out and run and do some good things. So I think his versatility is key. And then, bringing in Marquiston Douglas from Florida State. Marquiston is a big, long, physical specimen that played significant reps at Florida State, playing big-time football, competing for a college football playoff spot, playing the elite teams in the country. So the experience that he brings playing big boy football, what that looks like day in and day out, that level of preparation, that level of competition, I think he's been a tremendous addition to our room. I think he's a tremendous complement to his skill set, complements Bryce's skill set, and vice versa. They're not the same player. They're very different. But I think they complement each other, and I think when they're both on the field at the same time, it's going to be a problem for teams. And then we brought in Cameron Harpole from San Diego State. Obviously, anybody knows anything about San Diego State and the offense that they run, those tight ends in that offense are asked to do a lot in the run game and pass protection, being physical. But if you go back and you look at his high school film, he was a big-time elite, flex tight end that he's got. He kind of will surprise you with his athleticism and his ball skills and body control. He's got some juice, but I think he's a very well-rounded, versatile tight end, and I think he's a perfect fit to those other two. So I feel really good about those three and how they complement each other, what we can do with them, and then obviously we're excited. We brought in a great walk-on last year from Pinnacle and Colson Aarons. he's impressed a lot of people. I know our coaching staff is really high on him. He's getting significant reps right now, which has been good for us. And then we're excited about our big time 24 signing. I don't know if I can talk about him or not yet since he's not officially student athlete status. I don't know those rules yet, but we're excited about what we're bringing in as well.